new episode of Unfiltered Conversations. I'm your host, Tyler, and I am joined today with the Unfiltered Crew, as you know, Walt Young and Anthony Trusso. And actually, Walt's going to be kind of our host tonight, as we're going to be talking about a subject that he has been ready to come on here and talk about for a while now. We are sorry for the little 5-6 minute delay there. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. Again, we're historians, not technologically savvy people. But we are very, very excited. Wait, hold on. What? Was I speaking for myself and not for all? I don't know. But again, we are very happy if you are joining live or if you're watching later on History Fix, Spotify, or YouTube. We're on all of those, so check us out if you don't catch it live tonight. And if you're listening later, thank you. But Walt today has decided that we are going to shift gears and go back to the American Revolution. So, we're in the spirit of A250 here. We're trying to talk about things that may not always get the light of day. And truthfully, I know nothing other than what I read with Eric Atkinson stuff, which was great. That was great. Rick Atkinson did a great job covering those some of the stuff just throughout the American Revolution with his first two trilogies there. That's my knowledge. It's not much. So, Walt, I do thank you for taking the time today to come on and talk to us about that. So, without any further ado, I'm going to let Walt take over and bring us up to speed on what's happening in Charleston during the American Revolution.
Of course, sounds good. So I'll open the floor with kind of a question to you guys that will relate to ultimately what we're talking about. So we kind of discussed this on last week's podcast, but when you think of a place that really exemplifies the revolution to you, where does your mind pop to immediately? Like where? What's Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, Philadelphia. You would think Boston, but like Philly, there's so much. So my brain just goes there.
Morristown, New Jersey.
Morristown, New Jersey. All right. And I know some of you may or may not be located in the great state of Virginia, so you might have one or two.
Yeah, I'm here, and I said Philly, and I don't. Yeah, I'm in Virginia.
Now, most people, when that question is answered, they do not answer South Carolina. If you ask that question about the Civil War, South Carolina is sometimes on the first few places that come to mind because they, let's be honest, they started it.
Yeah, they started it.
But it often doesn't come to mind with the revolution until hopefully this 250th anniversary commemoration. Now, the state has for a long time been very proud of what they did in the revolution. This year, they've come up with a let's say a provocative license plate for the America 250 that says South Carolina, where the revolution was won. And
that's a conversation starter.
Yeah, kind of like North Carolina and Ohio with the first in flight birthplace of aviation debate. I could see some Massachusetts, New Jersey, Virginia looking to dispute South Carolina a little bit. But I would say that while the license plate may be going a little much, South Carolina is certainly going to be very important for the course of the revolution, both in symbolic ways and ultimately near the end of the revolution in very material ways that will help lead General Charles Cornwallis on his way to Yorktown. So what we're going to be talking about with Charleston specifically today, which is where I'm based, is both number one, a victory that will give the state and in some ways the nation some of its enduring symbols from the revolution. And then two, a colonist defeat that will nevertheless end up paving the way for what will ultimately be a fairly disastrous British campaign, even though they are victorious here. So both the 1776 Battle of Sullivan's Island and 1780 Siege of Charleston are going to be pretty important. Okay, so starting with, I figured I'd start with where we kind of wrapped up last time with the Declaration of Independence, which we're about to come to our anniversary of this coming month, and the list of grievances that's compiled therein. Just like I often start out Civil War programming with that Declaration of Secession in South Carolina, which says why they're leaving. South Carolina is going to be very related to a few of the Declaration of Independence's grievances. I like to call Charleston's revolution a parallel revolution to everything you guys learned about in history class. So we've got 5 major grievances of the 27 that I would say are especially relevant to South Carolina, 4 of which give a sense of why the colonists are fighting as a whole, and one of which is, of course, the great unfinished piece of American history that will help lead us to the Civil War. So we've got pulling up the exact wording for. We'll start with the one I remember. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Yes. Yeah.
I think it is only right that when you read these, make sure you put he has. Make sure you stuck it in that king space.
Some of them
emphasize he, right?
Yeah, there are a few that start with 4, but yes, he has combined with others, etc., giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. So, you guys know of the Boston Tea Party, of course. What did the colonists do with the tea?
They dumped it right in the harbor,
dumped
man.
it in the water. Here in Charleston, we're going to have one of the many events before the revolution that really exemplify the way to the revolution. A tea party of our own, the Charleston Tea Party in 1773. Okay. Here, the colonists won't dump the tea, but they will steal it and take it home and end up using some of the proceeds to fund early elements of our revolution.
Quick question, because I know that South Carolina sort of has this tie-in with tea and being grown there. At the time, do you know if any of the colonists were actually growing tea within the colony? So was South Carolina producing their own?
To my knowledge, no. Tea is pretty much only an import.
So everything is coming in as an import.
The East India Company brings it from elsewhere, and part of the issue for the colonists ends up being the East India Company is basically a monopoly. The Tea Act is lowering the tax, but it's intended to solidify the East India Company's monopoly, which hurts. Like the British call us smugglers to some extent, but we're looking to do what anyone would look to today, which is trade with other parts of the world that aren't England.
That makes sense. Okay.
Going back, here's the one I meant to start with. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these lands for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. It's going to be the last part that's particularly relevant to South Carolina. Part of the French and Indian War happens here in South Carolina. It is basically colonists versus, in this case, Cherokee Native Americans. And one of our people here, William Moultrie, heavily involved in this first battle, is going to get his start, as do many in that fight, like the namesake of Fort Moultrie. So he is going to be the first commander of that fort.
He's got a statue in Battery Park, right?
He does, and that is one of the pictures that we'll be presenting in a little while. Next up, one of his acts of pretended legislation is for imposing taxes on us without our consent. So you've heard of Stamp Act protests. Have you ever heard of Charleston's fake funeral?
No. Charleston's fake funeral?
Yes. So there are a couple of fake funerals I've seen in Charleston history. One's at the end of the Civil War, but this one is a fake funeral that colonists drag a hearse through the streets that says American Liberty on it. And they are going to, as part of 1765. So as part of 9 full days where the British have, according to one of our local historians, the city has basically become ungovernable for the British. The colonists have the run of the city. They're burning effigies. They're besieging a tax collector's house, and they are doing that fake funeral. So that will be part of the Stamp Act Congress.
Well, on that, is there a royal governor in South Carolina?
Yep. Yeah, there's a succession of royal governors. The colony began as what were called the Lords Proprietors, which were basically rich financial backers in England or sometimes Barbados. It was an offshoot of Barbados. But since 1719, the Lords Proprietors are not in charge anymore, and the colony is kind of the traditional royal governor and legislature setup until the Revolution.
And is Charleston the capital?
Charleston is the capital. Charleston will be the capital until Columbia is made the capital in the late 1700s. So still after the Revolution for that.
Cool. Thank
you. Number 4, we've got for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Now, I'm going to say a name and it's only going to be 2 names. But
it's like a NASCAR name.
Stop me when you think you've
name.
heard this before. Say
Okay.
again?
Is it like a NASCAR name where it's first name, first name?
I'm not.
Like
I wouldn't call
John
the next name a first name, but well, you'll see.
Okay.
John Wilkes.
Yeah, that's neat. That name.
Yeah. So so obviously that name has been forever ruined by a presidential assassin, John Wilkes Booth. But the reason that his parents would have named him that is after this dude, John Wilkes. Okay. He is a legislator in Parliament, and he's a much cooler guy than the assassin. He is going to speak before Parliament, criticizing the king. Oh, you can't do that.
And
how dare you?
And for that, he will be, at least for a time, thrown in jail. So the state legislature in the late 1760s will pass a law that says we're going to send some money to this guy's legal defense fund. That is what we are going to appropriate money on. And the royal governor responds with, "You can't do that." And they fight about it for 5 years. So the colony is basically without a working legislature for much of 5 years, from about 1769 to 74. And by 1775, it's easy to pick up from that as a result and say, okay, well, we haven't had a legislature anyway. Why don't we make a committee of public safety like some other colonies are doing and make that kind of the anti-British shadow government? So through those 4 things, yeah. So through those 4 things, I think you can see how that's kind of the colonists' general argument against King George, right?
Right.
This is political tyranny through these elements. Now, here's the South Carolina twist on it, which is the most unfortunate one. It's the last of the Declaration's causes. I'm just going to say the first part. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us. I'm going to stop there. The rest of the clause is about Native Americans. Okay. But in this case, who's domestic insurrections?
Slaves.
Yep, slave revolts. So Charleston has been home to nearby Charleston has been home to the Stono Rebellion already in 1739. And this is their worst fear for the governing class around here. They are going to be seeing shadows all year through 1775 as the revolution begins. And are going to accuse the British royal governor of working to create a slave revolt. Near the end of the year, the governor, Lord William Campbell, is going to basically say, okay, well, they think it anyway. So it's not a slave revolt, but I'm going to be welcoming people to escape from local plantations and get to Sullivan's Island. The colonists are not going to be happy about that.
So Campbell's not doing he's not pulling a Dunmore?
He's pretty close to pulling a Dunmore.
Way to throw Virginia in there. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah. So the Dunmore Proclamation, I forget the precise timing of it. Campbell is not going out and saying that he is raising a regiment of black troops. Right. But he and to give you a little sense of what the situation is for him. So otherwise, he has a pretty bad year in 1775, as you might imagine. Yeah. And with the exception of regarding African Americans, where I think he comes off as fairly sympathetic. In other ways, he doesn't. He's going to have the same relationship that other governors have with a lot of the colonies, and he is going to be slowly ostracized. He only just arrived at the beginning of the year, and he is going to actually leave the city in September. The colonists, the same week as Lexington conquered, the colonists have seized gunpowder magazines around the city. So that's another example of the parallel revolution. Even when they don't know what's going on in Massachusetts, they're acting. They're getting ready to defend themselves against the only government they've ever known. And they will seize gunpowder. The British will, Governor Campbell's losing power very quickly. And in mid-September, he gets out of the city. He ends up living on a houseboat. The problem is
similar to Dunmore.
It's called the HMS Tamar. Sorry, continue.
That's basically what Dunmore does. So he's out on a boat.
Yeah, he's going. Yep. Well. Okay. So he is sitting on a ship in the middle of Charleston Harbor. They have a small engagement in November, which might be considered the first battle here in Charleston. That it doesn't really change anything. And all the while, he is using Sullivan's Island as a British base at this point. But ultimately, the royal governor of North Carolina comes down to him and says, yeah, we've been given orders to bail. So he leaves the city in early January of 1776. And now the colonists are able to take over they have every island and the city itself. So now they can start getting ready to mount a potential defense of their city. Because as you might imagine, he's a little grumpy. He wants his stuff back, title back, house back. And he is going to be sending letters to British Royal Navy officials to come down and try and get the city back. And I'll stop there. So that wraps up a segment. I'll stop there if you have further questions.
No, you're doing a great job, man. I'm following.
So what month? I'm following along on a timeline off the side here. So what month are we in?
So Campbell's gone in January. Later in mid-January, the colonists are going to start sending people to a fort to start building a fort on Sullivan's Island. That's going to be mostly, and I say militia units. I'm mostly referring to regular South Carolina troops. So they are not Continentals. But they're kind of a step up from normal militia in that they're not Minutemen, so to speak. Like this is now their job.
Here's a quick question from that.
Militiamen and slave workers are going to be building. Yeah.
You said Campbell leaves, right?
Yeah.
So does the state now reinstitute some sort when Dunmore leaves, Patrick Henry ends up as governor, right?
Yeah. So the state will. The next step is in March, the state will issue what is functionally a Declaration of Independence. So now, from then on, from March until early July, they are going to refer to John Rutledge as the President of South Carolina. He will go on later on to sign the Constitution. He'll be an early Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So he ends up he's important after the Revolution too, but here he is considered the president for the time being.
Any relationship to Edward Rutledge, the Declaration?
I believe yes, but I don't specifically remember whether they were brothers or whether it was a further relationship. What you'll find in Charleston is that there are names of maybe 10 to 15 people who are everything throughout the city's history. It shows that they show up over and over and over again, and Rutledge is one of them. So yeah, Edward Rutledge signs the Declaration, and John Rutledge will later sign the Constitution and is in South Carolina at the time of this battle. So we've got the colonists getting ready to have a fort built. When the fort is finished, I'll show you if we could pull up the first of our slides here. Absolutely. With what the British think of this fort and of the now rebelling colonists. If you can see the image, we've got the fort on top here. Once it's finished with cannons, although once it's partially finished. But if you look toward the bottom, you've got a woman with her large fancy wig, which actually is the fort. This is a political cartoon.
Oh my God, that is a wig.
Back in London. Yep.
I thought that was a potato.
Well, I mean, given some of the fancy dress at that time, you would be forgiven. And if you can read the bottom, she is named Miss Carolina Sullivan, one of the
what a pretty name,
daughters of America, 1776. Say again?
So what a pretty name, Carolina Sullivan.
Carolina Sullivan. So Carolina, of course, is the colony, and Sullivan is going to be the harbor island where she or the colonist fort is going to be located. So the British, this is how the British have seen the colonies for a long time, as the obstinate child who's the naughty kid rebelling against their parents. And just like any teenage face, they'll get over it someday and they'll return to us. This is one of the important steps away from that. If we take a look at the next
slide, I said the most important takeaway from that is I want to get a potato wig.
Oh yeah. We should all end up dressed on
trendy.
This is a challenge to us on this show to be dressed like that.
Yeah, we'll wear potatoes one day. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but if it does, you've seen it here. It'd be cool. Maybe what's this one, Walt? This looks like a pretty cool fort.
Yeah, so it's an overhead shot of what they're building. Now, do any of you already know the building materials that they're going to be using? Any guesses?
It's not brick masonry, is it?
Nope, it is not yet brick masonry.
Timber?
Sand is going to be your good glue for the fort. Very good. Found in vast quantities on our beach. What about oyster shells? Are often used in colonial era forts. But this one is going to be a specific type of trees that are often found around the area.
Palmetto trees.
Palmettos, very good. So the fort is going to be made of palmetto logs and sand. Those are going to be found nearby. We're going to start building in January. You'll notice that the fort is about halfway complete. So everything that's kind of in brown going around the edges is complete. We've got our rectangle with 4 corners, but only 2 of the 4 sides are finished, and only 2 of the 4 corners are finished. So it's basically halfway complete.
So what's up?
Is that the water on the bottom?
At the bottom of the image, where you've got the bottom on the left side finished on here.
So it looks like you got a readout jutting out too.
Yeah. Correct. Yep.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, but another question here. The trees in there, there's 3 standing trees in the middle. Is that to replicate that's a wooded interior of the fort, or is that showing you what the fort's constructed out of? Because those don't look like palmetto trees to me.
That is a good question. So this comes from a book that was published in the mid 1800s about this battle. So it's not an original blueprint, but it is taking from the original plans that they would have had. It's not a primary source, but it's one of the earlier sources we have as an image for this. So my guess would be that the trees in the middle are representative of the building materials.
Okay. I mean, I just at first glance they didn't look like palmetto trees to me. Those almost look like oaks, but I guess.
Yeah, I think you might be going for the symbolism.
Cool.
Yep. So by March, they send Colonel William Moultrie out to the fort. Colonel Moultrie is running the 2nd South Carolina Regiment, and he will. There are 3 at the moment. So large army. Not really. 2nd South Carolina Regiment is going out to the fort. They and the enslaved workers are going to continue on the building process. And by early June, the fort is about midway complete. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question I ask a lot of the people I deal with in public interpretation when doing this. For any team or organization you've been part of, have you ever had a boss or coach or commanding officer who you did not like?
Sure. I think everybody can probably say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'll ask you to name them on this pocket. No, just kidding.
Thankfully, it was a long time ago now.
Yeah, really. So they get a visit from that guy whose name is Charles Lee. So Charles Lee is Continental Army. His boss doesn't like him very much either. Who's his boss?
George Washington.
George Washington. So he is ultimately going to come down here. He's fresh off whipping some colonists into shape in Virginia, and he comes in here with the attitude, the militiamen don't know what they're doing. It's my job to set them straight. So he comes around, looks at the fort, and he says, "This fort is horrible. This is a slaughter pen waiting to happen. The British are going to knock this down in half an hour. We need to focus on defending the bottom of the city instead." Now, if we can take a look at the next map that shows a map of the area. And does my mouse show up on here?
No. It does not.
It does not. Okay.
I can point. I mean, I don't think mine's going to show up either. So, but
yeah, no problem.
Just a theoretical point. Maybe people.
All right.
I don't know.
So, if the viewer looks kind of at the center to the right side of the map, you'll see Sullivan's Island. It's kind of a small U shape, and at the bottom left of that is Fort Moultrie. So this is the first version of Fort Moultrie. Fort Moultrie did not name the fort after himself. They would have called it either just Fort Sullivan or the Fort on Sullivan's Island.
Okay.
The other forts, this is a modern day lens. So Castle Pinckney and Fort Sumter do not yet exist. Fort Johnson is at the bottom left, and that does exist. And ideally, if a ship wants to enter the harbor, if you see Morris Island at the bottom center of the map, ships have to come in to the right, the east of Morris Island, go almost straight up to Sullivan's Island, and then turn in between the future sites of Fort Moultrie and Fort Sumter. Then slot them back to pass by Fort Johnson and go to Castle Pinckney. The next map will show this in detail. If we can switch to the historic map.
There we go.
All right, so now the viewer can see. You see where the words ship channel near the bottom right are? That's the entrance. And ships have to go up, pass by Sullivan's Island, go through what would eventually be called Rebellion Road, and then up to the city. So here's Charles Lee's plan. All right, this fort is horrible. We need to bail on this entirely. We need to solidify our defenses around the very bottom of the city. So what do you guys think of that?
Can you put that map back on for a second?
I can.
Yeah.
So
All right,
leave Moultrie
Mm-hmm.
and go to the city.
Yeah, focus almost all the defenses, and they do have thousands of soldiers now that he's brought about 2,000. So they do have a manpower advantage potentially over the British. Focus on defending the bottom of the city. I'll let you guys think about what you think of that.
That's absolutely bonkers.
Hell
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I agree.
You got the stones, dude.
Yep. So it's good fortune that Charles Lee was actually coming to fire Colonel Moultrie on the morning of June 28th, as British ships lay waiting outside the harbor so that he can implement his plan. But before he can do that, the British are going to attack. So the battle will ultimately be done following Moultrie's militia plan of defending the forerunner to Fort Moultrie, rather than Charles Lee's plan at the bottom of the city. So the British don't have home field advantage here in the battle, right? So they've got to come up with a couple of plans. Plan number one is get forces on Isle of Palms today. We call it that for tourist purposes. Back then, they would have called it Long Island. If you look at the top right of the map, do you see that little spit of land with the fort on the bottom of it?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is Long Island. So the British think.
Walt.
Yeah.
Where do the Islanders play?
Oh my God.
Sorry, say again.
Where do the Islanders play?
Oh gosh. The hockey. Let's just say hockey was not the sport of choice in 1700s Charleston for climate and many other reasons. So Sullivan's Island is right next to Long Island, they think. And the British, I should give a little background to the British. The British are sending Navy and Army down to this area. The Navy is led by a guy named Commodore Sir Peter Parker.
Awesome. Spider-Man's in the play. Let's go.
Spider-Man. You're going to see a picture of him in a few minutes.
Let's go.
Not a great Spider-Man, but the Army commanders are people you've probably heard of, General Charles Cornwallis and General Henry Clinton. Cornwallis is not going to play a big part in this battle. Clinton is mainly going to be planning the Long Island section of this. So he's thinking, why don't we march our troops across Breach Inlet, which is between Sullivan's Island and Long Island. It's wide, as you can see on the map at the time, but he thinks it's very shallow and easy to cross. So that's plan number one. Plan number two, sail those warships here through the ship channel into the harbor, take out Fort Sullivan, or the fort, and then move on to the city of Charleston. All right, so two plans. So how many of you do you think worked? Neither, correct. So both are going to end up with pretty severe, I would say, environmental / geographic problems. Problem number one is going to be on the north end of the island. The British don't realize until about a week before the battle that it is about 7 feet deep. So you can't march across that unless you're Shaquille O'Neal, and these are Islanders. Say again?
You can only do it once.
Yeah, right. So that's not going to work. So they are going to have to plan to take small boats across. Okay. And as they, by that point, the colonists are able to reinforce that position under a man named Colonel William or Danger Thompson, a guy you might want on your side, and including up to 700.
Dope name.
Force about 780. The British have about 2,000. The colonists do have a band of about 50 Catawba, mostly Catawba and associated tribes, Native American warriors, who are on the colonist side.
Well, what time of day are we at here?
We are in the morning. So the British are going to try and launch both of these attacks in the morning, the land attack and the naval attack. So we're going to take them one at a time. The land attack, they are going to try and cross in small boats. So this gets rid of any manpower advantage they've had, because the small boats can't shoot anything. They're just rowed boats. And they are sitting ducks as the colonists rain down mostly musket fire on them and pretty decisively turn them back. The intent had been that once they got past that point, they could hit that unfinished fort from the back. But that doesn't happen at all, as it turns out. So plan number one is gone. Plan number two. The British are going to try and sail those 9 warships into the harbor. Can you put the map back up real quick?
I can. Sorry, you mean to leave it up for a while?
No, it's fine in bits and pieces.
Okay, cool.
All right,
yeah, I want to see your face too, man.
So right below where you see the words Rebellion Road on the map, you see that kind of shallow area.
Mm-hmm.
So that is nowadays home to Fort Sumter. The British are going to try and send their back line of 3 ships around all the way to the back of Sullivan's Island, just a full loop around the rest of the naval force to the back of the island so they can fire into the unfinished section. But they are going to immediately hear a loud crunch. So they are running aground on the dangerous sandbars of, later on, it'll end up being Fort Sumter. So those 3 ships are basically taken out of the battle, and one of them ends up completely scuttled the next morning. The remaining 6 ships decide, okay, well, we've got to defend the ships that are now stuck a little bit. So remember, the intent is quick strike, then move on.
Right.
They don't move on at all throughout the entire rest of the battle. They just sit there and fire into the fort. Now, the British have about 260 cannons. The colonists have about 30. By the end of the battle, do you think the British have managed to knock down the palmetto logs of the fort after firing into them for about 10 hours?
Probably not.
Did the sand hold it together that well?
The sand held it together partially, but actually the logs themselves, and this is part of the reason why they become the enduring symbol, are going to be very spongy compared to the relatively brittle wood of the British.
So it's absorbing the impact of any of the shells or anything.
It is pretty much absorbing the rest of the impact. And I've actually seen a good friend of mine attempt to cross-cut through a real palmetto log, and it took him like an hour. So they are very porous, and like you ask some botanists, and they'll even tell you that they are it's almost more like a thick grass than it is most trees. And so they are able to absorb the impact, and the British don't do much damage at all. So the combination of the British errors and the colonists' fortuitous, as it turned out, because there's no way they planned for that portion to happen. Building materials are going to work out.
I just did a quick look at the British order of battle for that. Mm-hmm. And one of the captains of one of the ships traveled with Cook and circumnavigated the world.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, Cook does a lot of his stuff like late in our revolution. Like his ships are sailing around the world while like Saratoga is going on and whatnot. And he dies in Hawaii. So.
Wild.
Yep. But yeah, so not just one thing going on at once, but yeah. So the British get repulsed. The colonists have won the battle. I do want to cycle through the commanders from the battle. So we'll start with Colonel Moultrie on the colonist side.
Picture.
That be him?
Yep, that would be him. And this is actually the statue that Anthony referenced earlier at the Battery of Charleston.
Okay.
So he would later rise to become a general. He would be here at Charleston later on in the Revolution, and he would become the governor of the state. And as governors went, he was very pro-French Revolution, actually. But anyway, and then on the British side, we'll make fun of Commodore Sir Peter Parker.
Let's go, Spider-Man.
Peter Parker.
So here is Sir Spider-Man.
That does not look like Spider-Man.
No.
That does not look like him at all.
Well, we were talking about the potatoes. So he's got one of those aristocratic wigs.
Yeah.
He's got the breeches. And here's the best part: during the battle, he actually gets wounded during the battle. So not like in and of itself, not like anyone's wounding is serious. And in fact, the British royal governor would later die from wounds that he sustained in this battle. But Commodore Sir Peter Parker's wounding is in the upper leg, the thigh, and the recorded incident is that the colonial cannonball traveled toward him, wounded him in the thigh, but also tore his breeches off at above the knees and basically left him in his. So he lost his spider suit in the battle.
Yeah, he did. Dude, I'm going to tell you right now, I was like sort of admiring the uniform, and then I look behind him at this just badass gun behind him. What is that? Do you happen to know what that is? I'm a huge nut for guns and forts and things like that.
That's a good question. So
It's obviously not a Columbiad, right? Like we know that's not a thing, but it's huge.
Right. It looks like the size of a Columbiad, but
it does.
So a couple options. Most of these paintings are painted when the British are in New York City later, hanging out later on in the Revolution. Sir Peter was eventually basically, I forget whether he passed through New York at all, but he basically lost face because of this battle, and he mostly ends up in the Caribbean, which the British care about in the Revolution, and the French care about a lot more than we do.
You don't hear about him probably because of that, right? Like when you don't do such a good job, and then you get almost ostracized to the Caribbean, you're not going to make the textbooks in American Revolutionary history. So
dude becomes an MP, was just reading too after the war.
Yep. So not positive about that canon, but I will if any eagle-eyed and canon
I mean,
let's
see if Anthony can nail it down. Doesn't that look like a freaking Columbiad though, dude? Like, oh, Walt's got something. Yay. Sorry guys, I get diverted when I see a gun like that. I have to know.
Yeah, it does. It does look more Civil War than you would think, but I have just been reading about British carronades, which were a lot. I would say they're a lot shorter than that, but they were kind of heavy, stout naval artillery starting later on in the war. So
that's
sorry to derail that. I had to know.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's a 1799 portrait when he was commander-in-chief of His Majesty's fleet. But I can't find any.
It has to be a naval gun. That thing's not going to be land-based.
Yeah.
Oh, it would definitely be.
That's a naval gun. We know that much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the kind of and that does mention the size the colonists are mostly using for cannons in the battle. They're using a lot of 18 and 24 pound.
Here we go.
So decent size compared to elsewhere.
Pull it back up.
Okay. So
he has seen. This is from the Fitzwilliam, the art museum in Cambridge. He is seen full length, turned towards the left. His right hand is holding his admiral's hat. He is portrayed as a Portsmouth battery standing in front of a cannon. Doesn't say the type of cannon. His flagship, the Royal William, is seen in the background on the sea.
Okay.
The Royal William was guard ship at Portsmouth in 1799. The Union flag. Flying mast signifies Parker's rank as Admiral of the Fleet, which he attained just shortly before this was painted. So those are big guns in Portsmouth, I guess, defending the city. While
I'll take that. I'll take that. I find it funny that when you get three historians together, the first thing we do is try to dissect a freaking painting.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the most famous story on the British side of this battle.
Okay.
And if we go to the next picture, we'll take a look at the battle itself.
Oh, it's a big firefight.
The way I'll dissect this painting is, I would say that the ships are a little too close. The shipping channel was about 1/4 to 3/4 of a mile away from Fort Moultrie in the sections where they could actually sail through it. And the areas where they run aground is on the opposite side, not on the side closest to the fort. But one thing I do want to call attention to is, do you see the flag that the fort is flying?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so we've got our blue flag with the crescent. And what does that look at least a little bit like?
The palmetto, the state flag.
It's missing the tree in the middle of it. Yeah.
Yep. So if we go one more picture down, you'll see the colonists' most famous story of the battle, which is that of Sergeant William Jasper, who during the battle is going to see the flagpole get hit by a cannonball. He is going to retrieve the flag, which has been knocked over, and he is going to get the flag back up using one of their sponge rammers, which they usually use to clean and load their cannons. And the flag that they're flying has a couple different iterations. This painting has the version which says Liberty across the flag. But what Colonel Moultrie says he used as the flag was this design, the blue field with the crescent in the corner. People argue about what the crescent was. Traditional explanation is that it's been a gorget, which is a neck brace in the medieval period. Some historian, a recent biographer of General Moultrie, has asserted that he thinks that, which are you guys? I actually don't know. Are you guys the oldest in your family? I know one of you, Anthony. Yes, you are. Tyler, are you the oldest?
I'm not. I'm third. If you count everybody, I'm third in line.
All right. Or do you have any older brothers?
I'd have an older brother.
Okay, so you are not inheriting in British nobility.
Even if
The
he's a half
second,
brother. Well, no, that
well,
worked for
that gets,
Washington. Augustine was a yeah. No, never mind. No, you might be absolutely right.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna guess on the family connections in full, but yes,
we can go all day on that.
so you are not inheriting if you are not the firstborn
No, damn it.
true son in the family.
There goes my future. God darn it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, you might want to join the clergy or join the army,
I'll
and
go with the
or
army.
make a house of your own.
Ooh, okay.
The second son of a family would, according to this biographer, sometimes put that crescent on their flag. So, and Colonel Moultrie was the second son of his family. So that is
So,
one other
okay.
option. But the important thing is that that was a tangent. The important thing is that's what the flag looked like. And now, today, our flag has the crescent in the corner and the palmetto tree in the center. Now, do any of you care to guess? I would say the decade in which that was made the official state flag.
1861.
Yes, you've got the year 1861. So it's going to be the Confederates who make that the state flag because they are looking to tie themselves to this potent symbol of the
I only knew
revolution.
that because it was flown at First Bull Run or First Manassas, depending on where you're from. Yeah, so that flag was a flag that would have been seen.
That makes sense because they're still. I mean, well, everyone's bringing their own.
Yeah, it's
everyone
a
of their brothers bringing their own flag, their uniform, whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is made the state flag at that point, but it's tying back to revolutionary symbols, trying to say that the Confederates are the true revolutionaries. And that I think that does tie into the state's self-image around this battle. And ultimately, this battle is going to keep the British out of Charleston for 4 years, though not permanently, as we'll see. But I would say its biggest significance for South Carolina is it's the first victory over the British Royal Navy, effectively, from any land-based fort, and it is giving the state a lot of its identity. That it won a battle, as it turned out, right before the Declaration of Independence, which was adopted a week later up in Philadelphia. So Colonel William Moultrie got on his cell phones at Jefferson and Adams and told them to stop writing because they had won the battle. No, that didn't happen. But it was an important morale victory, I think, at an important moment for our revolution.
Really quickly before we go off this picture, I know I'm dissecting photos or imagery again, but the headgear is interesting in this because
I think to me it looks a little like German World War I helmets.
Yeah, it's like you mixed a German helmet with a cockade and just mashed them together. Like it's got that weird. I didn't know if you knew anything about that or not. If that's
I'm gonna vouch a little more for the Peter Parker picture than I am for this one, if I'm being honest. There are many depictions of Sergeant Jasper, but that and like the action is the same in all of them. But yeah, the headgear that I have at our historic site is basically the front of it is flat. The top of it almost goes above my head, almost like a crescent, and it has a little more of a back to it, a little bit of metal plating. But it's not it's not the bowl that I think that they're kind of portraying it a little bit more as the bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we've moved on. The colonists have won the battle. They have the city of Charleston. The British are going to mostly be doing operations up in states like New York and Pennsylvania, and I'm forgetting one in between. Is there even a state in between New York and Pennsylvania? No, New Jersey. That's what it is.
Don't tell me that. Yeah. We're going to pretend like Jersey just didn't exist right there, Anthony.
But later, the British are going to start trying to make a dent in the South as well. They're going to end up taking Savannah, and they are going to end up starting to move to the outskirts of Charleston near the end of the year 1779. And the idea here is this. Well, if you're the British, you have New York. You don't have Boston anymore, and I'd have to double check on Philly. And you're not really expanding the revolution very much in the northern states, or you're not expanding British influence there. The colonists basically have New England, for example, but the colonists are winning some heavy morale victories and have drawn the French into the fight. But if the British can focus on taking back land, and they think a good place to do that is the South. They think that there's a lot of untapped loyalist sentiment in the South that they can go down and make use of once they get outside of Charleston. That often a patriot hotbed. There were both in the city, but it was, I would say, the center of the revolution in South Carolina among the upper classes, certainly at that point. The British think if we can get Charleston, then that's a logistical hub. It's the biggest southern port in the nation. We can go up and we can make this a loyalist hub for the South.
Yeah.
All right. So the first part of that plan is what will go the best for them, which is actually getting back the city of Charleston. Now, we identified some things that they did wrong earlier on, right? Such as they didn't know the terrain. They just sat in front of Fort Moultrie and fired into it all day and didn't move toward their actual objective. And I think it's also worth saying, and I didn't say this earlier, but they don't have much beyond. They don't have much help beyond just getting into the harbor that way. The only other infantry force was on another island. So they are going to solve those problems. They get a force southwest of the city, landing near kind of Kiowa Islands today, which is, well, a couple islands southwest of Charleston. And marching up, they have some battles. They have the Battle of Dill's Bluff at one point. And they are going to be able to get forces north of the city by early March, march through a couple of the plantations, which even then were around there and were home to some of the Declaration signers like Arthur Middleton and John Drayton from South Carolina. And they are going to have a land force north of the city. It's not something they had before. Can you pull up map number 3 or 4 again?
The one this one.
Yep. Oh yeah, this works. So you see the city is a peninsula, right? Right in the center to the left. Mm-hmm. The city is a peninsula. The British now, by March, are starting to have forces stretched across the top of the peninsula. And the city was a lot smaller then than it is now. So if Calhoun Street, what a name, is now in the center of the city effectively. But back then it was kind of the outskirts, and that is going to be near what end up being siege lines between the British and the colonists. So even actually below the word Charleston on our map is basically where the British have gotten their forces to. So that's one thing they're doing better. Yeah, the second thing they do better, in April, they are going to sail their ships into the shipping channel again. And this time, they sprint right past Fort Moultrie, and they have no battle. They have neutralized the force at Fort Moultrie completely, and it will ultimately be captured. And now they have forces at the bottom of the city. So basically, all of the colonists are are in the city trying to fight off the British boats and the British infantrymen. Now, whose plan does this sound like?
Lee.
Yeah, Charles Lee.
They're just copying Charles Lee.
Well, I don't think the colonists wanted this to happen, but now they are stuck, basically only having the resources that Charles Lee wanted to limit them to in 1776. The commander of Charleston is named, at this point, is named Benjamin Lincoln, who will end up getting some redemption at Yorktown the following year.
I'll say that name sounds familiar.
He gets to collect the surrender. But in this case, he is, and this is, politics are going to get involved here. He basically sees the writing on the wall that this is not going well, and he wants to get as much of his force out as possible quickly, and he is going to end up in negotiations with the most powerful people in South Carolina, who mostly live in the city, about that. And they are going to tell him, no, you cannot abandon us at this troubling time. Your forces are all that's left holding us back from the British takeover. So they settle in for about a 2+ month siege from mid-March until late May. And by the end of May, the British have taken over the city, and they've taken Lincoln's 5,000+ men prisoner of war. That is the largest Patriot surrender of the Revolution. And if either of you Civil War buffs care to guess what the battle that, to my knowledge, eclipses it is?
Harper's Ferry.
I was going to say Harper's Ferry.
To my knowledge, this is the largest surrender of United States forces to anyone until the Battle of Harper's Ferry 2 days before Antietam in 1862 during the Civil
And it's
War.
not much of a battle either, is it?
Right? No, it's not. It's
No,
like
no,
it is
almost
a
injudicious calling it that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, in some ways, I think you could you could see some structural similarities to the Siege of Vicksburg, that the defender has just ended up in a very poor in a position that once the enemy has the forces they've allowed it to take, does not have many avenues out, and for political reasons or larger scale strategic reasons, in Vicksburg's case, it's considered important for them to hang on to the
and it's the flip side with Yorktown a few years later. Like you have
absolutely,
it's the same kind of ordeal where the British are trapped inside Yorktown proper, and you've got the colonists pretty much spread all the way around them, and the French in the Bay. So you do, I can see the similarities with that too, even.
Yeah. So the British have won the battle, and now they've taken over the city of Charleston. So that achieved their objective from early on. The problem for them is that the strategic aspects don't actually end up being giving the fruits of what they thought would happen. So they are going to fan out into the state of South Carolina, the colony / state of South Carolina, and Cornwallis, who's now in charge, is going and has been the main British officer commanding troops in this successful siege. He is going to end up splitting his army into 3 parts. Problem is, 2 of them effectively get disbanded. So the battles of Kings Mountain and Cowpens are going to deal fatal blows to basically 2/3 of his army. One section under Ferguson gets basically to a man slaughtered or taken prisoner.
Ferguson gets killed too.
Yeah, Ferguson is killed. Yep. And the man who had once had a shot at Washington but didn't take it. And then at Cowpens, which is one of the most famous battles of the Revolution, maybe the most hated man of the Revolution, Jason Isaacs himself, Bannister Tarleton. That's not his name in the Mel Gibson movie.
Lucius Malfoy.
Just think Lucius Malfoy.
Lucius Malfoy. This guy's.
I was wondering when the Patriot would rear its face in this chat. I knew it was going to happen.
The funny thing is, in terms of personality, I think this guy's a little more like Draco Malfoy than Lucius Malfoy. He's a young guy who's a little brat, basically.
Oh my God!
He is going, and he has made, and this is a big part of the reason. Big part of the reason the British have issues. Winning hearts and minds, important part of any war, in some ways. And in even in the Civil War, when the Union is in the Deep South, they have a lot of hearts and minds that they're winning, which are the enslaved who are flocking to them.
Sure.
Here in Charleston, here in South Carolina, Bannister Tarleton is basically going to ignite a mini civil war that ultimately will not prove helpful for the British. There are both patriot and loyalist partisans who will do a lot of burning. And so if you get drawn into the revolution, in upstate, you often, unless you have an ideological motive like the British won't let me expand west of their proclamation line, that's one potential motive. Yeah. But otherwise, if you are not ideological coming into this, that guy burned my farm. Guess we're fighting against them. Right. And oftentimes that means fighting against the British. Sometimes it does mean becoming a loyalist, but oftentimes it means becoming a patriot. And so the British don't get that unified populace that they thought they were going to get in South Carolina. And that is going to prove very much a problem for them. And at Cowpens, some of their troubles come at the hands of not just trained continentals, but militiamen who are able to follow the instructions of Daniel Morgan to basically lay the bait for Tarleton getting caught in a trap. And he and his men are largely captured. So Cornwallis, with only a little bit of his army, we talked about Cook earlier, Cornwallis is going to do the Cook's tour through North Carolina, of bouncing around and fumbling his way through the state. He ends up fighting Nathaniel Greene, who ends up being probably Washington's best lieutenant. And Greene doesn't win many battles like Washington himself, but he ends up continuing to lead Cornwallis down the road to nowhere, which will ultimately end him up in Virginia and lead him to his surrender at Yorktown. So South Carolina's claims may be grandiose about their role in the revolution later on, but I would say the biggest actual contribution they had, and a very significant one at that, is going to be forcing the British out of the state very weakened, leading them down the path to their eventual capture.
I love that, man.
Yeah. Hey Walt. Any books on this subject?
That's a good way to wrap it up. Yeah, let's talk about our favorite thing in the world, books.
Yeah. All right. So
I'm all for it.
Battle histories of the Battle of Sullivan's Island. There aren't too many. I do know someone who's put together like a maybe 60-page book. His name is Norm Rickman, or like 100-page, like short and easily readable book. Norm Rickman, called Unsung, about the battle. The best biography of General Moultrie, he becomes general later in the war, is Crescent Moon over Carolina.
I got that for you.
By C.L. Bragg, yes. So that's that, and then the book, A Gallant Defense, is probably by Karl Borick, is basically the best book on the 1780 siege. There are numerous good books, and probably more of them, about the backcountry war in South Carolina.
Yeah, I've got one it's called The American Revolution in the Southern Backcountry.
Yep.
That's one I've got, and then I have a few on Cowpens or one Babbitt's book. Yeah, so I got a few.
Yeah,
but again, the future trilogy coming out, I think the second.
Yeah, with the end of Atkinson. Yeah, and he ends his second of the three with the 1780 siege, and spends some time on that. The Ken Burns documentary from last year spent a short amount of time on the Battle of Sullivan's Island in the third episode, and then spent about a good 15 minutes on the capture of Charleston in 1780 before, in the sixth and final episode, devoting some time to the happenings in the backcountry.
Awesome.
This was great, Walt.
Yeah, man. Seriously, this was one of my favorites. This is going to be an episode to even go back and listen to if I want to learn more about Charleston. Seriously, thank you for taking the time today to teach us about that. This was a very engaging conversation, man.
Of course. And I think this does definitely go in line with some of what we were talking about last week, that Charleston's history, the importance of Charleston's history lays in the connections you can make, especially pre-1865, that this place really defines the contradictions of America, both in truly an impressive and important role in the war for independence, and a link to the meaning. And all of these guys would have been very proud of the words of the Declaration of Independence and the meaning of it. And then being the centerpiece of course, the Civil War. And I think for a majority of South Carolinians, where they could get to participate in that Declaration of Independence. Yeah. And I think that makes this place, I'm fortunate to get to be down here, one of the most important places in the country for history learning.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, thank you guys again for being a part of this episode tonight. And again, for those watching, you can catch us later if you didn't catch it all the way through. We will be on History Fix, we will be on Spotify, and we will be on YouTube. I'll have links for all of those. Next week, we have Phil Greenwald and we have Pat Kelly Fisher, who are going to talk about their new book on the New Mexico campaign in Civil War. So we're going to be going through that. And then we have Madeline Firestein. I have not put her flyer yet. I need to do that. So you look out for that tomorrow. That'll announce. That'll be our next one. And then I'm still looking at July. July 1st is the anniversary of the Gettysburg Battle, of course. Something I like to call the Gettysburg Industrial Complex, jokingly, of course.
We have a more important battle anniversary at the end of that month.
Yes, we do.
Without that one later in the month, nothing else.
You wouldn't. That's right. You wouldn't have it. But I'm looking at maybe some Gettysburg programming. Gosh, just to keep in the spirit with it. So I'll look out and see if I can't book somebody to come hang out with us and talk Gettysburg for a little bit.
We should get some good Manassas coverage at the end of the month. If you know anybody that can
I'm all for that. I also am going to announce tonight too that we do have one on July 15th. Neil Chaidelin's going to come on and also talk about his emerging Civil War book. We're going to dive into the naval aspect of the Civil War. So that's going to be a fun conversation too, because I'm just now starting to get into that. Read a great book on the Monitor and the Merrimack. It was a phenomenal book, and I'm a little interested in my interest is piqued in the naval warfare aspect. So we'll definitely start moving down that road or sailing down that waterway, if you will. But again, gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here tonight. I have one chat blip here that actually popped up for some reason. It wasn't working on Facebook, but Justin Wright said, my dude doing work. Miss you, dude. Hope all is well. Justin, it's good to see you, man. I'm doing good. We're all having a great talk tonight. So thank you for tuning in. We saw some on Facebook as well that did not get the mention because it's not going through. Hoping to address that before the next one. But Will Eichler just popped in and said hello. And we also saw Todd Rhodes
brothers. The Rutledges were brothers.
That's right. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next.